time is not their own. So I'll go ahead and get started. For those of you who don't know me, I am Carrie McKillop. I am currently the National Chair until October of the Extension Disaster Education Network. And at that time, I will turn over the reins to Mr. Ball. I am a CED educator with the University of Illinois Extension, and I've been involved in Eden for, I'm scared to say, 14 years now. But one of the things that we talked about, and the purpose of scheduling this meeting, was oftentimes, because of our busy schedules, we don't often get a chance to communicate with the points of contact. And so we wanted to set up a twice a year telephone or a Zoom call with the points of contact, mainly to let you know of the upcoming things through Eden, different things that are coming up, but also to find out if you have concerns, if you have needs, anything that will make it easier for you as the point of contact for your state. And Abby will go through some of the basics of what that means. But we are scheduling a meeting at the end of June, hopefully in the future, and Mr. Ball will carry that forward. But we will have a January and June meeting. And then we're planning this year at the Eden Annual Conference in Grand Rapids to start a point of contact breakfast meeting on one of the days. We haven't got the logistics of that figured out again, but hopefully it'll give you a chance to find out what other points of contacts have done to engage delegates in their state. Maybe you have something that's worked really well. We want to make the lines of communication open and as easy for you as possible, because as we know, as we move through some of the funding cycles, disaster and climate change is going to be a bigger topic for all of us in Extension. So the other thing that we want to do because of that topic is hopefully by the June meeting, and as I said, we scheduled that for June 29th, we will be rolling out a Qualtrics form to help you collect the data in your state of what your delegates are doing. We're trying to make it as easy as possible. Right now it resides as a Excel spreadsheet, and we thought a Qualtrics form will make it easier for you. And then that way we can collect the collective impact of Extension as it relates to our disaster programming. And it makes a very strong case for what we're all doing in our communities and in our states to hopefully reduce the impact of disasters. So that will be coming down the pike. And with that, I will turn it back to Abby. Do we have? I will turn it over to Abby Lilpop, who is our National Project Coordinator.
Good afternoon, good morning, wherever we are. Like Carrie said, I'm Abby Lilpop. I'm the National Eden Project Coordinator, and I'm based at Purdue University. And because we have so many new points of contact and so many new to joining both Eden and having taken on this role, we want to do a quick little introduction of what Eden is, kind of how we function, and a little bit of information and an effort to stay relatively timely and leave enough time for the discussion at the end. I'm going to move through this a little quickly. But so what is Eden? Figure out how to work my slides. There we go. We are a collaborative multi-state effort of extension systems from all 50 states and 3 US territories that come together to efficiently deliver services to our citizens and our communities affected by disaster. The biggest strength of Eden is that it truly is a network. It's not a top-down program, so it's not our initiatives given to us by USDA or an association. It is just our main goal to share our educational expertise and resources amongst ourselves, amongst our extension systems, so that those can get out to our communities and constituents to best serve those. Our Eden delegates represent all 4 major extension program areas, being ag and natural resources, community development, 4-H and youth development, and family and consumer sciences. We also have Sea Grant delegates bringing additional expertise. And the delegates may be experts in community planning, anything from zoonotical or animal diseases, food safety, coastal flooding, communications. We have a very broad spectrum of what our delegates serve as experts in, which makes us this great interdisciplinary network to really kind of help make robust resources for us all. We have over 300 delegates that represent about 77 extension systems. And each Eden member program, so the institution itself is the Eden member, and each member program has 1 point of contact for each of you that's on this today. You are that individual for your institution. You may have as many delegates as any institution chooses to have. So we do have some institutions where the point of contact may be the only delegate, where we have other institutions that have built teams or have recruited to have delegates representing each of the program areas. So we have some institutions that maybe have 10 or 12 delegates, but there's always still only 1 individual that serves as the point of contact. The point of contact is named by the extension director or administrator, as well as the Sea Grant program director or administrator, and is responsible for providing the leadership and communication on behalf of the network to your fellow extension professionals within your system and at your institution. Representing the program of Eden in elections. So when we do call for an official vote amongst Eden, it is that point of contact that serves as that institutional vote. If by chance the point of contact is unable to attend a vote, we do allow for proxy, and we send those forms out ahead of time. But again, by being the main point of contact for Eden, it's communication and representing your system. Delegates are included in all email communications, which include throwing out questions given to a particular event, asking for an idea from other delegates, providing feedback when delegates pose problems or questions, sharing information, resources, and in general, just being in the Eden communication loop. Delegates are also often encouraged to take part and join in the annual meeting and join in standing committees where we really grow the robust relationships, which then kind of filter into what we do programmatically and functionally. The extension programs, as I said, are the members themselves rather than an individual. So the network membership consists of cooperative extension systems from the 1862s and 1890 land-grant universities at this time. We do have hopes of expanding to incorporate the 1994s very soon. As well as we do have roughly half of the Sea Grant extension programs represented at this time. Our current membership includes all of the 1862s, 18 of 19 of the 1890 programs, and as I said, about half of the Sea Grants. So we're making a very conscious effort to grow our membership with those institutions that have yet to join. If we'd have had this conversation 5 years ago, we probably had maybe a third of the 1890 institutions involved. So we've made a very conscious effort to incorporate and grow within those systems. So while the institutions are the members, it's the network strength really lies in those delegates and those, nearly 400 individuals at this point that serve as the delegates to Eden. That's where the strength is. That's where the communications are. That's where the work gets done. So most representing extension serving institutions, but we do have a few individuals within our ranks as delegates that are not or are no longer associated with an institution. We do have a category for retirees. So when you retire from your institution, you are given the option to remain an active participant within Eden. And we just, it does have to go before a vote of our executive committee to turn that status into a retiree. So those individuals do actually serve as delegates unaffiliated to an institution. And we also do have a category at this time that's called the affiliates. Those are individuals that are with entities that we partner with and that we share a lot of overlap, but they are not tied to a land grant institution or a sea grant program. Okay, a quick history. We are now beginning to push 30 years in the making for Eden. As a kid, the most memorable event I remember seeing on TV was the August of '93 floods along the Mississippi, where water consumed everything and it felt like it stood for days and days. That was where Eden got its original roots. So following the floods of '93, groups from Iowa, Illinois, Missouri got together and joined to capture those lessons learned about what Extension's role was in the preparedness, response, and recovery of that event. A USDA grant then helped form the North Central Regional Committee to expand on how those states could better work together, specifically with educational resources related to potential future disasters. As those conversations happened, membership began to grow, encompassing more of the Midwest. Eden really started with all the adjacent states to the Mississippi. So in '97, we had 7 states, finally came up with a name in '98. And then in 2002 was our first general funding through USDA. At the time, it was CSRES. I think I missed an E in there. I apologize. Which thankfully they turned to NIFA because I can say that one far easier. And by 2005, we had encompassed all 50 states and the 3 territories represented to what is our full membership at this time. And we still continue with support from USDA NIFA in what we call the FATI funds, the Food and Ag Defense Initiative, which are currently housed with Purdue Extension. So how does Eden grow your own professional network? It's really by that part becoming involved. I think most that participate in committees will tell you that's where they find the most strength. That's where you meet people that are associated in, we have 4 programmatic committees, again, associated to your program areas in the cooperative extension realm. So those are kind of your first points of contacts when you have questions related to what it is you do specifically. And that's where a lot of our content comes out of, is those programmatic committees. And we are seeing more and more so as we move year to year, how those programmatic committees are even overlapping to do joint projects together. We do also have 4 functioning committees. So annual meeting, exercise, marketing, professional development. Those are more so, how does the network position itself? How do we get information out? How do we provide development opportunities to our delegates? Each of these committees does meet on a monthly basis, and those calendars can be found on our website with call-in information. Another piece that I'm going to show you here in just a minute, where if you have not done so, or any of the delegates from within your institution have not already created their delegate profiles, I'll show you all where that you can find that information. But becoming engaged as a delegate really increases the possibilities of the network. So it's how we manage our listservs. It's that being part of that communication, the if someone has a question, becoming actively engaged in the conversation. Our delegate profiles themselves are created for each delegate, highlighting what their areas of specialties are, where their expertise lies, what it is where they are participating within the network. So what committees are they a part of? We do have a select list of FEMA courses that we encourage delegates to take. And so it does show if those have been completed by the delegates, but it also has the contact information, which I think most people will tell you is one of the most important features of those profiles. And again, the personal relationships really is where we say our strength is. It's the getting to know each other, knowing that you have someone that has been through the same situation. Well, we know that no disasters are alike. They have a lot of similarities, and that rarely do we run into a circumstance where somebody hasn't had an experience somewhat similar. So being able to bounce ideas off of, I don't know how many times you'll hear the most commonly said phrase is, well, I'm going to call Scott Cotton. Scott retired at the end of last year, but I feel like he was the personal relationship that everybody built because he had an answer or he knew the person to turn to for everything. I think we're going to have to rope Tom into being that as our new Scott, because Tom knows, I think, everyone in all extension systems. So, but again, it's the partnerships, those multi-state projects, and again, real-time support when you're in an active disaster or starting those early phases of recovery. How can you enhance your programming? Again, the resource dashboard within the website has publications, programs and materials, reporting mechanisms. As Carrie mentioned, we're in the process of building out an impacts and report that will be turned into a Qualtrics, and it will be included in our delegate portal that was created through a couple of our standing committees. And then, but again, the resources are there to be used. So any institution can input resources into our database. We have different ways of searching for those. So you can actually search by what it is you're looking for, as in, are you looking for a fact sheet? Are you looking for a course to deliver? Are you looking for an online curriculum? Or you can look for specifically, I'm looking for something related to BSE or African swine fever. So we try to create this in a way where it's easily navigated by whatever way is going to get you your information the fastest and easiest. Wanted to highlight some of those online courses that we've talked about. These ones have been created by Eden, utilizing those USDA funds. These ones are all part of they're in that resource dashboard, and are created in a way that they can be pulled down and delivered out in your communities. So most are broken down into a module-based education platform, so that each course typically is about 4 modules. So you can break it down and do those at 4 different times in 1-hour segments or in half-day segments. There's a couple that are a little bit longer, but again, finding partners from other institutions and have a group of educators you can call or email, and group of individuals who've been through similar situations is one of the most reassuring parts when responding to disasters. So that network of collaborators and experts is tremendously helpful. And our professional development opportunities. One of the best things about Eden is the availability of trainings through scheduled webinars, our annual meeting, the network of experts who may be able to work with you to meet specific disaster education needs. Sometimes our professional development opportunities, while we do have a monthly standing offering from our professional development committee, we do also have sometimes customized ones when we know of a hot topic or something that is an immediate concern. We can pull people together and deliver kind of those key points that you need to be able to convey to your communities or to your stakeholders. And then quickly, to go quickly to, no, wrong one, the website. again, Eden's website is extensiondisaster.net. When I talked about the resource dashboard, it's very simple here on the front page. It's our first little toggle switch. When you click it, and I apologize, the computer's going to run incredibly slowly. This is that form that I already showed you in different ways to search. Also, if you just scroll down, it will always show you the most recently uploaded resources in the system. Another piece that we referenced earlier, Carrie referenced response notes. Those are when you are actively in an event, quick reference notes. They don't have to be pretty. They don't have to be overly detailed, but while you're in the midst of an event, you can come in here, you submit what your name is, email. These do not have to be done by the point of contact. They can also be done by delegates, but it tells Eden, the executive committee, as well as our USDA national program leader, and those on the FATI support team, what the event is that you're responding to. So it'll ask you what type it is, if there is a need for resources, and that is there something that Eden or Extension can assist in? Provide a brief description of what has happened, what was impacted by from your community standpoint, as well as were facilities within your extension system impacted? Is there anything that we can do? And again, the ask, as well as showing what it is that your system is doing in response to that disaster. Again, these go directly to USDA and are often and have often been pulled to go directly to the secretary to highlight what extension's impact is. It does also allow you to provide documents. The other piece is when these are submitted in, at the end of your event, you can ask for a copy to have them pulled back to you. And so that it will help you with your reporting within your state and for your end of the year numbers. The other piece that I wanted to highlight is this delegate portal. This section will again have a link to those response notes. Webinar submissions, if you ever have a program or project that you would like to highlight to Eden delegates system-wide, the webinar submissions are open to any of our delegates to submit. It gives you the opportunity to be considered for one of our monthly webinar series, but also gives us information on if you have one of those just-in-time sessions that would be very helpful. So if you've recently come out with some avian influenza materials, as we're seeing that become, you know, it's hitting our radars more and more right now. The other pieces, the one that I really wanted to highlight for all of our points of contact is this in this become a delegate section. We're gonna click on that one really fast. It does explain the differences between the points of contacts and the delegates. How you can go about being named either one. Points of contact again are named by your extension administration, either your director or administrator. Delegates can be named by any point of contact or the extension director. An administrator. But one of the pieces I referenced earlier, those delegate profiles, on this page is the link to create those profiles. You will not appear within the website until this portion is done. And we do ask that every delegate completes it. So as points of contact, as you are growing your delegate groups from your institutions, please have them complete those forms when you are sending Claire Crum, she's on somewhere, she's just not in my pictures right now, or myself, the notice to add those individuals as delegates. Having them in the directory is a key component. Otherwise, they're only part of the listserv and people won't know that they're available as a resource or as an expert. All right, and I think I hit all the things I wanted to and what was slightly longer than I had planned, but all right. Now I'm turning things over to Tom to discuss our upcoming strategic planning sessions.
Well, thanks, Abby, and good afternoon. My name is Tom Ball, and I am the point of contact from Mississippi State University. I have been a member of the exercise committee, the annual meeting committee, A&R, agri-security, and have been on the executive committee for about 5 years now, and have been a member of Eden since that time, where you could write the date and year with more zeros than you can now. But Chair McKillop created a task force to develop a 5-year strategic plan for Eden this summer, and this is only the third time in the history of the organization that we have formally begun a process of this nature. And plans are for you to have this document available at the annual meeting in Grand Rapids this fall. So we're working vigorously and persistently on this. Our task force, and it's working with a member institution, will canvass network points of contact and delegates to collect opinions about Eden and provide meaningful impact to the leadership of the organization as to what members desire in terms of research and programming efforts in the coming months. There'll be listening sessions and surveys, and they'll ask what Eden's leadership can do to increase awareness of the network and to how to make the materials and the resources that we have more easily accessible to the membership. We want to know what you believe are the strengths of Eden. What services do members and institutions, clients, stakeholders desire, want, need? This planning effort is designed to let Eden leaders know how to best serve our institutions and what we might do to attract more vigorous involvement from an increasing number of extension services and Sea Grant members across the nation. Now, how do you believe that it would be easiest to have access to Eden programming? How do you want to see the records, recommendations for best practices, the materials that we have acquired and that we have kept available for our 30 years of existence? That's what we're working on. We want to make sure that we are easy for our membership to use and to implement in their communities, states, and localities. Again, we want your opinion. Whether it's a listening session or there's a site that will be up, or even in a face-to-face meeting, we want to be responsive to your desires and needs. So please do not be bashful. Please feel free to give us all of your information that you believe will help us fill gaps and make improvements to Eden. Because it is you, it's the land grant instance, it's the Sea Grant members, and the association of members with the Cooperative Extension Services. Eden is not just the executive committee, it's not just those committee heads that provide leadership, it's all of us. So we want the membership and the network to be as strong and to be doing all of those things that we're capable of doing. Eden was created, as Abby described, and we hold as its guiding light a very strong desire to develop and share those educational resources so that our communities can benefit with the reduction of the impacts and disruptions of our ways of life. We want to support, we want to enable to support the points of contact. We want to work with you so that you can help build, hold community exercises, planning and preparedness, work with response and recovery, mitigation, and a concept that is aware of our involvement with USDA, NIFA, as well as FEMA and local and state agencies with emergency responsibilities. we're facing these responsibilities related to natural disasters and man-created incidents on a more regular basis than we've ever had. We have been active in support of those in Kentucky that were visited with the tornadoes. We have touched base with those that were impacted by the wildfires out west, Colorado, and in the Pacific Northwest. We want to do things with flooding. We have a variety of expertise at our disposal in Eden. And we want to make sure that you as points of contact and delegates have a comfortable feeling about asking and for that help and the ability to find it without great difficulty. So that's what we want to make sure that when we create this research-based library of knowledge, that we've got the resources, that it's how you want it. So in this strategic plan, we want you to tell us what we do well, and then tell us what we need to do better. And if there's anything that we need to do about a specific programming area, whether it's increasing preparedness planning for 4-H youth or working in FCS for food preservation and consumption after an extended power disruption, or even training local agents for leading communications, or working in a incident management structure in the counties that you're in the states, let us know. We're proud of our success stories, and one of those was mentioned by Abby earlier, the webinar we conducted with COVID-19 pandemic led by some CDC folks. We had to bump up our electronic capacity to host that more than 2 or 3 times because it was so timely and because it was so critical to what our states and communities needed. That's the kind of impact that Eden has and can have if you will help us direct our focus and take part in this strategic plan to give us a little bit of direction. Tell us what you want us to do and tell us how you want us to do it, and we'll be glad to implement those things that we can, given the resources that we possess and the talents of those that provide membership to our network. Thank you for your participation today. And when given the opportunity to participate in a listening session or in a post to an opinion board or a question board, please take time to do that, because the strategic plan that we have will only be as good as the involvement of those participating. Thanks for being on this webinar today, and I will turn it back to you, Abby or Carrie.
Well, I'm going to be real quick and talk about training opportunities. Abby's already mentioned our monthly professional development webinars, and most of you are aware of our annual conference. You'll notice we're changing the name of that. We've always called it our annual meeting, but our annual meeting resides within the annual conference, which this year will be October 11th through 14th in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And we encourage you all to attend, but we also are planning some regional trainings. Some of the things that many of our members know need to be done in a face-to-face long-term, not long-term, but intensive training. And we're really proud that Illinois is going to host our first regional training, hopefully in late April. For those of you in the North Central region, you will be getting invites to that once we have all the details. And we hope to do that in all 4 regions of extension. And the first one will be done by our 1890 institutions who had the opportunity to be trained by FEMA on a curriculum on using outreach to faith-based institutions or faith-based organizations and doing disaster preparedness with that. So we're really looking forward to that, and that will just be the first of hopefully many regional trainings that we will be able to do over the coming years. But the real meat of this, I want to turn it over to Angie Lindsay, we want to kind of get some of your ideas and opportunities for where Eden should be going just in the immediate future. So Angie, over to you.
Great, thank you. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for being here today. My name is Angie Lindsay. I'm secretary with Eden, and I am the point of contact for University of Florida. And I've been involved with Eden. I was trying to count on my fingers, like I count it by hurricanes. So my first meeting was after a hurricane in 2016, and then we had 2 major hurricanes in 2017 and 18, so about 6 years. So wonderful. So before we get started with some of the questions that I wanted to ask y'all regarding some needs, are there any questions? I feel like there's been a lot of information that been thrown at you for the past couple of minutes. So are there questions that y'all may have or clarifications that we can answer before we continue on for the last section?
This is Glenda. I have a question.
Sure.
I noticed when I was trying to upload some of our Cascadia Subduction Zone event publications that there were in the drop down for the resources to check off, there's nothing for earthquakes. It seemed like that would be a good topic. I think it's seen it mentioned elsewhere, but it would be good to have that one added since earthquakes are a hot topic in the West.
I will make that note, make that update. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Other questions or clarifications that we can answer? Okay, great. And again, if you have something, we can talk afterwards, but we want to be respectful of everybody's time. So just a couple of things that we wanted to kind of talk about and thinking about engaging with some Eden delegates at your institution. Can you talk a little bit about some of the barriers that you may have into engaging with them? And more particularly, what can Eden do? What can Eden National provide? Some tools or training or education that may break down those barriers or make it a little bit easier in order to engage with the other delegates at your institution.
Well, this is Glenda again. I'm hoping that somebody can point me to a tabletop exercise that we could use at our extension conference next December to engage our extension employees with disaster preparedness and encourage them to get more involved with creating a culture of preparedness in Oregon.
Wonderful. Other thoughts about engaging in some tools that you may need to engage with your delegates? Go ahead.
This is Tommy from Montana. Abby had a lot of great foundational information in the opening presentation. And there's been a few times in the last year or two that I've wanted some updated generalized information and statistics about Eden, perhaps to use in a grant, an integrated grant application, where Eden may be a conduit for information, all the way down to some county agents who wanted to talk about this network at local meetings. So at any rate, that's this very small tool, and I felt like a lot of that good information was there. So maybe just some sort of like quick fact sheet and set of basic statistics would be helpful.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other thoughts, needs, addressing barriers? How can we help? No other thoughts right now?
Well,
go ahead.
This is Bill from Idaho. I think one of the things, this is maybe more specific to Idaho, but I think one of the potential, I don't know if I'd call it a barrier, but maybe could be a barrier to broad interest maybe and engagement with entities like Eden in our state. Could be everybody's really busy doing what they normally do, and secondly, historically our state has very few disasters. They happen, after long periods of time, and they tend to be pretty localized. So, we don't have hurricanes up here. Ice storms, things like that. Wildfire is certainly a huge thing, but Idaho, so far, knock on wood, most of our wildfires are in the backcountry where people don't live, and they're typically on federal land. So that has not always been the case, and I think they're increasing in the front country. They certainly are in my area of Idaho. But I think maybe that might be some of the hesitancy, is like people could work their whole career in a county and never have a disaster. So then the question becomes, how do you get those folks to be more aware and have, without them having to spend a whole lot of time? And I drafted something back during the COVID year for our county handbooks for our extension director, which is kind of like a bullet sheet of, the things to do if you're confronted with a disaster. I don't know if that has been published yet, but yeah, I would just say that's kind of in our state. That's how do you engage people when they may never encounter a disaster in their whole career? So.
Great, thank you. Or I would, while you were talking, I was thinking, well, we kind of all just been living through a disaster. So maybe looking at the term disaster as, we obviously think of natural disasters a lot of time. I think a lot of times because of the world we live in and the work that we do, but we've all been living in a global pandemic for the past almost 2 years now. So that's definitely been a disaster. And I think having other people understand how some of these long-term crisis and issues are impacting us as disasters do. So that's a good point.
I think that's a good point. I think in our state though, and I know Texas, they really took a big leadership role in that. Our state did not, we left that to the health departments and that sort of thing, which in our state was basically good luck. We did not, our state is a very anti-mask, anti-vaccine state. So anyway, even if we had taken a row, we'd have probably gotten a lot of trouble.
Good point. Very good point. Good point. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Other thoughts on things that we can do to help in engaging delegates or recruiting new delegates in your institution, things that you may need from Eden to help assist with with the work that you do?
This is Ken from North Dakota, and we just had a discussion about that for those of us within North Dakota, and we're facing a fair amount of turnover, and so just the need to be frequently reminding staff that disaster education is something that we do, and we're fortunate to have administrative support, and so it was just a reminder that Eden as a group needs to draft a letter for our director to send to all of our staff to remind them that disaster education is one of the things that is a role that is played in North Dakota by extension.
Great. Thank you, Ken. That's a great point.
This
Kathy,
is Kathy.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Yep, this is Kathy Vance from Iowa State University. And one of the things that I think would really help, so I saw someone in the chat put up a note, could we get the slides? the slides would be great, but that 15 minutes, maybe it was 20 minutes that Abby did at the very beginning. I see you nodding your head, Angie. Okay, if I could have that video, just that, without the chat, I mean, I could clip it maybe and send that to our state staff. I think that explanation was extraordinary and would really speak to why extension people in Iowa might want to be delegates or be more in the know about what goes on with Eden. It was very well done. So just a 15-minute video that I could show to other staff members, that would help me.
I thought the same thing, Kathy. I was nodding my head because this is exactly what we need to send to trying to recruit a delegate. Well, what is Eden? Well, here's Abby explaining exactly what it is. I loved it. You did a great job, Abby.
I agree. The thing of it is with turnover, there's that loss of continuity of knowledge amongst us. So having a base of training would be an important part of that, and giving support to the point of contact who may be the lone, torch carrier for that area. And with declining budgets and so forth, ag safety, emergency preparedness sometimes gets pushed to the background until the next flood, until the next tornado or disaster happens. We just happen to have a high path avian influenza outbreak happening in Indiana right now. And everybody's saying, gee, we should have training. So these things happen in cycles. And so it's important to have the background, Eden coming behind it and say, hey, listen to this guy. We need more of you, just in case something happens.
And Greg, I hope you know when I got that call on Wednesday, I thought of you and I felt like you jinxed me on Monday on the A&R call.
I know. And I was here till 8 o'clock last night. I've met with the state veterinarian twice already today. I have a meeting with USDA and our emergency preparedness group tomorrow. Do practice ICS and preparedness within the industry and within certain parts of it, but it's not all the way across the university. We have 67 counties in Pennsylvania. I like every county to have a point of contact so that if I need to call on that person to say, hey, who's the local source of this? They would say, I have that. I have that on my phone. And here it is. We're not there yet. We need your help.
Thank you, Greg. Go ahead.
This is Linda again. I really am trying to figure out, how to get more experience with the incident command system. And I happened to, at my emergency managers, my local emergency managers suggestion, join the Oregon Office of Emergency, the Oregon Emergency Managers Association. And they use the incident command system to put their conference on. And I thought that would be a really good thing for us to do so we could gain experience kind of at a national level as, that conference committee sets it up, so my role on the conference committee then that last fall was to be the speaker handler, okay? And then I had somebody I had to answer to, and I was in the operations section. And, it just really gave me a good feel for, what was going on. And so we had some real hands-on experience with setting up and or expanding as those different components of the conference were evolving, to, especially during COVID, to get that experience. And it was like, wow, this feels really good. It's that planned disaster experience, instead of having your first experience being in the disaster. If we can maybe, my suggestion is try that, and see if that can be, so we can get the lingo down and, you know what I'm saying? Just, have that actual experience.
Glenda, one of our instructors used the ICS system to put together his daughter's wedding. But at no point in time did he ever believe that he was the incident commander.
Oh, I used that for my daughter's wedding and I knew I was the incident commander. There was no doubt. I was everything, it's like, okay, you do this and you do that and, but
So
yes,
is the
that.
wedding party a strike team or a squad?
I was going to say we could have used an incident commander in North Carolina when we had the fire alarms going off in the middle of the conference.
We could have. Yes, that's a good point, Carrie.
Yeah. No, I was going to say that's a good idea because, the ICS system is just a management system. It's all it is. And you can use as much or as little of it as you need to. And so using it, and one of our continuing ed programs, Fire and Rescue Training Institute, who has a huge training weekend, and that was last weekend, they use that. They do an IAP, they do it all, and it works really, really well. So anyway, Glenda, that's a great idea, do something.
I don't know if any of you were on the calls so far with USDA, but the Indiana Department of Agriculture and USDA there in Indiana, we're using ICS to handle this outbreak, and they did a phenomenal job from start to finish. And they mentioned ICS by name.
I'm sure. Great, thank you. Well, this is some great conversation, but as I said, we want to be respectful of everyone's time. So I'm going to turn it back over to Carrie, but as Tom said, we're beginning the strategic plan process. And so folks will definitely be reaching out to you to ask for some input regarding strategic plan. But I encourage you as you're going through your day-to-day job, and if there's something like, I really wish I had such and such, just send one of us a quick email. I think our emails are pretty accessible, and just let us know. This would be something that would really help me engage my delegates, or this would be something that's really needed in my state, because chances are it's something that can be used by other folks around the country too. So we're a network, and one of our strengths is sharing and being able to share best management practices and share our resources. So I thank y'all for your time today. And if anything else comes up, please feel free to reach out to any of us. So Carrie, I will shut up now.
Yeah, and I just want to thank all of you for participating today, and mark your calendars for June 29th. And we will have our second call. Hopefully we will have some information on how we want to try to collect data through that Qualtrics survey to make it easy for you to show the impact that your disaster programming has in your state. And then we will have that point of contact breakfast in Grand Rapids. And hopefully we will be in touch with most of you throughout the year through the strategic planning process. And once again, just really want to thank you for participating and taking the time to be with us today, and hope it was useful to you. And if you have suggestions and items you want us to have on this call, please reach out to myself, Tom, Angie, or Abby, and we will make sure we try to get it on an agenda. So thanks.
Thanks. It was good.
Thanks, Connie. I think you need to be back on the annual meeting committee, Connie, so that we can use the incident command system to plan.
Just let me know. See you later. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye all. Thank you.